Hello and welcome to Topsin. My name is William Lebowski. Today we are doing something a little bit out of the ordinary than we normally would have ever done. This is a GT1, GT2, and GT3 Multiclass race here at Interlagos in Brazil in RaceRoom. RaceRoom is not a sim that we jump on particularly often, but RaceRoom has had an extraordinary year. And as we kind of wrap up on the year and look back on it, and also I'm kind of looking for something fun right now in sim racing, and still fast and fun and serious, but fun. I'm just coming off of doing a few races that lasted over a league that lasted over about a month long, and coming off of really paying hyper attention to setup details and speed and tenths, and just focusing on individual corners and practicing that kind of pursuit instead of spending time making these fun kind of videos of races and cars and tracks that just seem like they jump out as a good time. So I kind of wanted to let loose a little bit, and so that's why I turned to something like RaceRoom. I don't play RaceRoom incredibly frequently, and I haven't had the treasure trove of experience that people who played RaceRoom since its release have, but at the same time, I do notice its age, and especially in comparison to other sims that have kept themselves revitalized along the way. So I kind of talk about that in this little bit of a talk and drive ramble, and I'm curious to know what you guys think about that going forward. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments, and enjoy the race. Ooh. Little bit of action here as we go into turn one. I will give up on the entry here. Looks like we're going to be able to fight back mid-corner of one. Ooh, a little bit of argy-bargy going into two. And on the straightaway, it looks like we will lose out on the position as we did not have a good exit through that line. Or, I'm sorry, a good line through that exit. There we go. Finally got it right here. This corner has actually been catching me out a lot recently, but we finally able to make the apex there on lap one. I believe we had a car on our inside, if I remember correctly. This corner, I find I could make up a lot of time on the AI. They seem to be uncharacteristically weak exiting there and entering these Senna S's, although I did just get flashy lighted from one of those GT1s behind us, so maybe it wasn't so clean as I thought. Although that car making its way up the inside, my apologies, was at the roof, but for not necessarily knowing all of these cars just by sight, because this is not necessarily an era of racing that I specifically have any kind of experience with in any way, shape, or form. But this is a real cool grid. A GT1, GT2, and GT3 class of cars. I think this type of thing would have been possible about 2009. Ooh, a little bit of sideways action into turn one as we go very wide. Kind of expected to lose out to the car behind us there. But luckily these leaders playing a little grab ass up in front, so we're not losing out on too much. But anyway, this is not an era of racing that I specifically have like a whole lot of experience with, and especially where I was in life, I was definitely paying way more attention to bike racing, to cycling, than any kind of motorsport for sure. So this would have, the GT1 specifically would have kind of passed right on by me, as they did, and which is a bit of a shame, because the Ford GT is my favorite car, and anytime anyone's ever like, oh, if you could have one supercar, if you got to drive one, production car, not race car, my answer is always, for whatever any of those questions are, it's a Ford GT. So it would have been cool to have seen it race, but I didn't even know of its existence. So it is nice to break out this cool multi-class grid here with the GT1s, GT2s, and GT3s. And now that I come to think of it and say all this out loud, I don't even know if the GT1s and these GT2s that we have specifically would have raced at the same time. But judging by the car models that I've seen with their respective makes, I would assume that they would have been a similar time, at the very least in the same era. So I don't think we're that far off. I think we're looking at a pretty cool, at this point, almost, I guess you can call it a historic event, but obviously not looking at very old cars necessarily. I'd still very much consider these modern race cars. However, it's just a bygone era of racing that will never see the likes of again. You know, maybe seeing specific cars. I don't know who's, you know, really to say if the Ford GT will ever completely disappear in one way or another from motorsport. But as it is right now, this is something that can't be achieved in racing, so it's cool to have it in sim racing. But it is interesting, you know, in speaking of the times, changing times having come to pass, it's interesting that we can find this style of racing on RaceRoom. RaceRoom has gotten facelifts over the years, even this year, getting a pretty significant update to the way that the game plays in, as well as its update and content. And it does still very much specifically have its niche when it comes to the ADAC cars, the DTM cars, and I'm sure there's another class or two. Oh, the touring cars, for sure. And I'm sure there's something else that I'm forgetting just by concentrating on this race so much. So yeah, RaceRoom does still have its relevance, and I'm not trying to make the point that it's irrelevant. That's not what I'm saying. I actually am a fan of RaceRoom, but it just is begun to show its age. And I think that's an interesting thing to say in sim racing, because there are so many sims still very much similarly aged right now, but not necessarily getting that same frequency of flack. And what I'm thinking is iRacing and rFactor 2, my beloved rFactor 2, pretty much the same age as RaceRoom. RaceRoom came out in 2009, iRacing 2008, and rFactor 2, I believe, was 2013. And so we're looking at, you know, similar era titles, but somehow people don't seem to think that rFactor 2's gameplay is old and dated. Its AI, UI, very much old and dated, as we go very wide there, not concentrating on the driving at all. But iRacing, people talk about its age, but I think those are more controversial debates, where I think most people kind of have come to a consensus that RaceRoom has certain dated qualities, which is, it's hard to really admit that. I mean, here we are looking at a sunset race, and why did they slow down so much there? And looking at a sunset race, but no night and day cycle, no nighttime. So, I mean, that is something I think that would be expected in today's sim racing, although people don't necessarily say that the rain being introduced to iRacing is as necessary as some other people would have said. And so it's interesting to see what aspects of the weather and environment need to make their way in, and what aspects don't. Because I would argue that weather is important. It's vastly, you know, it's a huge, maybe not oversight being the right word to describe the lack of rain in iRacing, but I feel like in 2022, now going into 2023, it's a little bit of a ball drop of a mistake not to have rain in your sim. And I feel like going into 2023, not having nighttime in your sim is on that level. And I think many people would say worse than not having rain. So I would love to see RaceRoom get these needed changes. And I would love to see, you know, all of these changes. I would love to see iRacing get its rain finally, instead of just talked about, just because I'm not trying to be critical here on any of the sims or complain or anything like that, but it's just one of those situations where iRacing gets rain, and now RaceRoom goes, oh, now we have to add day-night. It's just one of those situations where rising tide is good for all ships, and, you know, in this situation, it being the competition. So I'm not trying to pass judgment, rather just stating more areas where competition could be improved to better enhance the sim racing community. Sorry, there's a lot of focus here on the driving, and so I feel like a lot of the sentences that I've put together might not have made total sense here, but as we've now reached the lead, I've had to put a lot of focus on that driving, and so I feel like the all those points that were making were a little bit, probably like one hand behind my back a little bit as we get past on the final corner for the lead. Let's see how much time we have. 3 minutes left in this race. We're sitting in second position. I think we have it in us to win this race. So let's make that the goal. It doesn't look like we're going to be running into any of the GT3 cars. Oh my, had to get out of the way of that one. These guys really are parking it on the apex. And I don't mean parking it as in being wide on the apex or making it impossible to pass. I literally mean stopping on the apex. It's incredibly frustrating. See, they outbrake you on the entry, but then they just stop in the middle. It's very strange. Well, I guess that is kind of what you have to do if you go in deep to a corner. Okay, let's stop waxing and waning about how to enter a corner with the AI. Let's just start focusing on getting past them, because now we have 2 minutes left, and we have been passed by another place as we make it up here, entering the Senna S's, rather through the Senna S's. Just got one position left, probably one more lap left. No, we'll have 2 laps left, maybe even 3 because it's +1, I believe. Yeah, I believe I've checked the +1, so we might be looking at, depending on how we finish this lap and how the time breaks down, we might be looking at 3 laps. Let's see where we're going to cross the line here. No, it'll be 2 laps, because we'll run into 0 on this lap, or maybe just a second ahead of it, depending on how this breaks down. But it looks like we'll be doing 1 more lap after this one, so 2 laps. I don't see us finishing. Anyway, it's a +1 no matter what, so okay, anyway. The point being, we have to get by this car as we go over some grass and get past in the Max Verstappen corner. I will always think about that corner. I will always think about Max and Lewis. The inside opens up. The inside's going to open up again right here. Man, the AI really got to learn to cover that. Otherwise, I'm going to eat that lunch every single time. I think we just got brighted. We got flashy lighted by the car behind us again. Must be real unhappy with those passes that we're making. "17 seconds left on the clock." Oh, wow. Big contact out of the penultimate corner. We are doing +1, right? This should be the white flag. Last lap, okay. I was gonna say, if that AI really just went into the corner like that and took it. Oh, they got Brazil on the livery. I wonder, does the computer make those kind of choices like that? All right, but as we're kind of lagging out of this corner, we got to think about our braking zone here. Let's defend from the AI behind, because we always get past in that corner. Now it looks like we're gaining in a place where we generally have a very good opportunity here. We just could not get the car inside quick enough. Another moment right here. I went way too wide. This another opportunity. Okay, we're fully around and flashy lighted by the AI. Gotta love it. Coming to the checkered flag here. I'm gonna take the inside because they always steal it from me here. As he showed on the last lap. Over to the apex, leave the outside for them. There it is. There we go. Ford GT taking home the win in Brazil in this 35 car multi-class race. That was really fun. I'm going to experiment with some more RaceRoom multi-class racing, but that was some real good fun racing. I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys are into with RaceRoom specifically so I could take cues from you guys. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.